Hi everyone, I'm Deb. Today I'm going to make for you a cake. It's called the Delice cake. I believe it's called Delice because it is delicious. They say that baking is a science, but I don't even believe in science. I mean, washing your hands? I don't like to wash my hands. And I don't even mean now in this corona time. I just never washed my hands.
I'm kidding. You should see what my hands look like before and after from all this hand washing.
I'm doing my best to keep my weight up, so you'll see that this recipe is probably very good for that. It's also no flour in it, so it's good for anybody celebrating Passover. Just gotta say, nobody is winning in this COVID fight. Nobody's winning except Andrew Cuomo. Nobody's winning. It was this cake my family used to get at a restaurant in Manhattan called the Manhattan Cafe. It was a French pastry chef named Guy Pascal. And when the restaurant closed, my parents used to drive to City Island and buy the cake at a bakery. I want to say it was $36 for a small cake. Then the bakery in City Island closed. And there's a lot of components to it, so you could see why it would be that expensive. And years later, I was looking on the www and I just typed it in to find anything about this guy, this cake, and there it is in the New York Times, a recipe. A woman named Marion Burroughs wrote this recipe for the New York Times. It's the whole thing. It's all the components. It's an almond meringue disc, it's a chocolate ganache, it's a coffee buttercream, and it's a lace chantilly. Maybe that's just the French name for whipped cream, I don't know. Since my husband and I don't need any more help chubbing up, I quartered the recipe and I wound up making 3 mini cakes. Let's start with the meringue. The recipe calls for 5 ounces of blanched almonds ground. That's just almond flour. Duh. Oh, did I mention that the first time I did not know that and I blanched and ground almonds? It was a process. Then it's 2 1/3 cup of super fine sugar. This is what super fine sugar looks like. Then it's 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 1/2 cups of egg whites. I quartered this, so I only have to use 3 egg whites. You're going to start by preheating your oven to 275 to get it ready. I have sill pads on my baking sheets so things don't stick to it. Either do that or butter and flour your baking sheets. Or if you have parchment paper, that would work too. In a large bowl, mix the ground almonds, 2 cups of the sugar and the cornstarch. Set it aside. Then, in another bowl, I just used a hand mixer. So I beat the egg whites until they started to froth up, just a couple minutes. And then I added that 1/3 cup of sugar that didn't mix into the almonds. Then I beat the egg whites until they were stiff but not dry. I slowly started to add the almond mixture into the egg whites by just folding it in. I stopped with the mixer. I filled a pastry bag. I have disposable ones. If you don't have, I think you could just put it all in a Ziploc bag and cut a little tip in the corner.
Usually when you're making the full-size cake, it calls for 4 8-inch circles. These will be your almond meringue discs.
I put the meringues into the oven for 45 minutes and then I turned the oven off and I let them cool because the first time I did not let them cool and I could not get them off the parchment. It was a mess. There was paper on the bottom. It was a mess. And then through my search on the World Wide Web, I found that if you just let meringue cool in the oven, it really comes off easily when it's done and ready. The next thing I did was make my ganache. It was 10 ounces of sweet chocolate. I used a mixture of dark chocolate and milk chocolate because that's what I had. 3 1/2 cups of heavy cream and 1 vanilla bean. I put the chocolate into a bowl and then I went over to the stove top and in a double boiler, I put my vanilla bean and my heavy cream and I brought it up just to a boil, took it off, poured it over the chocolate, mixed the chocolate until it was incorporated, and then I put it in the fridge. After an hour, I took it out of the fridge and I mixed it with my hand mixer. I put it back in the fridge to wait until I was ready. Then I made my Creme Chantilly. I think this is just whipped cream with a fancy name. This was just 2 cups of heavy cream with a 1/4 cup of confectioner's sugar. So this, I just beat it with the hand mixer until it started to thicken, and then I put that in the fridge to wait till I was ready to assemble. That's the quickest and easiest part of the whole recipe. The coffee buttercream. Hopefully you have instant coffee in your house, because I had instant coffee, but when I opened the jar, it was moldy. And I was trying to find online what I can replace this with, how to make real coffee and replace it. And everyone kept saying it's very hard to do that. If I couldn't figure this out in another way, I would have just done that and winged it. As I told you, I don't believe in science. Luckily, when I quartered my recipe, I only needed 1.5 teaspoons of the instant coffee with 1.5 teaspoons of boiling water. I'll have the whole recipe downstairs so you can check it out that way. My husband found a little bag he brought home from work when the quarantine started, and he had a little packet from Starbucks that was an instant coffee thing, and it was the exact amount I needed. Now, this expired in 2010, but what do I care? So this is a lot of egg whites again, if you're baking the full cake. It was like from 8 large eggs. It's 1 cup of egg whites. I quartered it, it was only 2 large egg whites. 1 pound of confectioner's sugar. Look, I didn't say this was healthy. And 1 pound of unsalted butter. It just sounds better when you quarter it because it's only 4 ounces of the confectioner's sugar and 1 stick of butter. It sounds a lot healthier. First, I mixed up the instant coffee, 1.5 teaspoons of the instant coffee with 1.5 teaspoons of boiling water. I mixed it up and set that aside. I started to prepare the buttercream. So on top of a double boiler with simmering water, I had in a glass bowl the egg whites and the confectioner's sugar, and I started to mix it until it became like frothy and white, but you don't want to leave it on there too long. Just did that for like a minute, took it off of the heat, and I continued to mix it until it was thick and white. Then I added the butter a little at a time. Then I added the coffee, and then I mixed all that, and then I put that into the fridge. I found mine didn't get thick enough, so after it was in the fridge for a little while, I took it out and I mixed it again, and then it seemed perfect. So now you have all your components, and then you just have to put it all together. Oh, it's delicious. You also need slivered almonds, which I happen to have because of this. They come in a bag from Trader Joe's. They're slivers of almonds, and they're already blanched and toasted. So it's just perfect. So you start by laying 1 meringue disc. You pour the ganache. When you're making this as a cake, it's like all the ganache. It says pour 4 cups of ganache over it, but I just put a little on that. I laid another disc down. Then I put some coffee buttercream on it. This says half the coffee buttercream because the rest of it, you're waiting to put it on the entire outside. I might have used a little too much coffee buttercream because I sort of ran out of it for my 3rd little one. With the next disc on, then you put the Delice Chantilly, then you put the 4th meringue disc on, and then you cover the whole thing in the coffee buttercream, and then you take the almond slivers and you put it all over it, and it is the most delicious thing in the world. It's velvety, it's crunchy, it just, every flavor melts together in your mouth like a wonderful party. You want to give this to people to eat because you want to see the joy on their face, but you also want to save it all for yourself and tell them you couldn't make it because it's that delicious. You just want to eat it all. If you didn't have a vanilla bean, I probably would leave it out, or I would probably just pour some vanilla liquid in there. Improvise. Science schmience. Baking is probably an exact science. I don't know, but I make this. I make so many mistakes. So if I can do it, you can do it. So here we are. I mean, they might not be the prettiest things, but they are delicious. Believe me. What? Something. Did I get it? Did I get it? I think I got it. You see the layers of meringue, you get the almonds, the chantilly, the ganache, the coffee buttercream. It melts perfectly together. You taste the almonds, you taste a crunch from the meringue, from the almonds. You taste some chocolate, some coffee, some chantilly. It's just a perfect blend. Guy Pascal, mwah, bellissimo. That's Italian. Delicious in French, whatever that is. As we like to say in my family, it's terrible. Don't try it. Please make this, enjoy, let me know if you make it, ask me any questions in the comments. I had a million questions the first time I made this. I actually emailed the lady from the New York Times who wrote this recipe. Her name was Marion Burroughs. She wrote me back. I wanted to know about the pastry chef Guy Pascal, and she didn't know. She said she had written this so many years before. So I can't find anything out about him. If you could find out, let me know. I will link to the recipe down below. Stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. Let me know if you have any questions. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, write me a comment, let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. I just eyeballed it. I just eyeballed it.